The following presentation is brought to you live from Dallas, Texas, for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 26th Annual Convention. This is tape 22, the multi-cycle teaching approach.
All right, everybody come in. If everybody's got a handout, or if you've already seen this handout, it is the multi-cycle session on different alternative ways of putting together our new dancer classes. And we'd like to introduce our panelists before we get started this morning. All the way on my far right, from the great state of California now, formerly from Louisiana, Mr. Nasser Shukayr. Nasser, nice to have him. Let's give a nice hand for Nasser. Also from the great state of Kansas, we've got Dana Schirmer, and Dana's wife Donna is one around here somewhere, isn't she?
She's around one of those sessions, I think.
Good. Anyway, it's nice to have Dana here to give us some information on some of the programs that he's running in his area. How many, just as a show of hands, how many of you are using an alternative way of running your classes right now that could be considered multi-cycle? Starting in 1 month? Good. 1, 2. So we still have just a small number. It's amazing to me. We've been talking about this way of organizing or running your new dancer dances and new dancer classes for probably 6 or 7 years now, haven't we? And the actual program itself has been in use in some form for probably over 10 years. It is the most successful way of running new dancer classes that I have ever seen, and I can't believe that more areas aren't considering it or aren't even looking into it. But I think what it takes is several successful programs for people to go, wait a minute, maybe we're not doing this the right way ourselves. And to look at just a little bit different way of organizing your classes and your new dancer programs so that you can, and I think this is the key of the whole thing, so that you can use your brand new enthusiastic dancers to bring their friends and dance with their friends immediately. Something we've lost, or that's been out of dancing in our traditional way of running classes for many, many years. If you get a new dancer that begins to learn to dance with your club and in your class, it'll take them the whole entire class period for them to learn to dance, and then for them, in all their excitement, to go out and tell their friends who they've been talking to all along about, boy, I'm out there on Wednesday nights and I'm learning to dance and I'm just having the greatest time and all, you can't believe this. But they can't bring their friends until, in most cases, almost a year later. We are missing that, and that's the one thing that multi-cycle programming has the benefit of, is that partway through their square dance experience, they can bring their friends, and they can dance with their friends immediately. And every one of my students, and I'm sure Dana and Nasser will probably back me up on this, but every one of them come up and say, boy, it's so nice to be the smart ones. I mean, they're angeling their friends right away. They're getting reinforced on the basics that they just went through. They're excited, and they're bringing their friends, and that form of one-on-one is something that we've lacked for so long in our clubs, and it's the most effective form of advertising. I think we can run around and advertise square dancing on the media for now till doomsday, but the one-on-one contact is absolutely the most effective, and you're not using your club members, you're utilizing your most enthusiastic, excited people to do that for you, and it makes a big, big difference. Let's start out with Nasser, and Nasser will tell you a little bit about getting a program started. Now, let me tell you first, before we get going here, that there are many, many ways to run a multi-cycle program, and they are being organized in many, many different fashions dependent upon a number of factors that we'll discuss as we go along here. And anytime, if you have some questions, please raise your hand. I'll get down with the mic and we'll get you on the microphone so that we can put it on the tape. It's important for this information to get on the tape. Okay? Nasser?
If you look at the overall square dancing, and the one main problem, or what the main weak spot is, and I think everyone would agree that we offer lessons just once a year, and this becomes a problem. What is the problem with lessons once a year is that people can only get into it once a year, but your club, when do they do the recruiting? 2 weeks prior to when lessons start, I guess. They start recruiting in mid-August for a September start. If someone has to drop out of lessons because they got sick or their dog died or whatever reason, then they can't get back into once a year. So the solution, basically the only thing we're saying, overlap the lesson starts. Instead of starting once a year, start a class every 2 months. Start 6 times a year. Start 3 times a year, or whatever works for you. What are the main benefits? people can get into lessons more often. You talked to someone about square dancing today and said, well, I'd like to try that next September. That's 6 months away. The multi-cycle approach, where we're starting a lesson the 4th of April, that's, a week away. At any one time, it's no more than 2 or 3 months away till the next start. Someone has to drop out of lessons. You can pick them right back up in 4 weeks or so when the next class starts. To start one completely from scratch, how many are considering starting one totally from scratch? That you just start a brand new group. You would get a hall on a night. You'd start with nothing and just beat the bushes and do whatever it takes to get a group together. Get a square. Get 6 people. Get 20 squares. Get what you can. Teach them for 4 weeks. This is just an example of how it would start. Teach them for 4 weeks. On the very first night or the very second night, announce, hey, in 4 weeks, we're starting a new group. Talk to all your friends. So they get from 7 to 9 p.m. for 4 weeks. You can teach them, I don't know, how many moves can you teach in 4 weeks? 36.8 or something. I don't know. You can teach some number of moves, okay? You can't teach the whole list. In 4 weeks, they bring all their friends. Now you have 2 groups going. And announce on that first or second night, hey, in 8 weeks, we're starting another group, so talk to all your friends, hand out these flyers and things. So now you're overlapping the class. You have like the brand new dancers and the new old dancers, but you can identify them as like people who started in April and people who started in May. They know who they are. Then like 8 weeks, okay, if you started like the 1st of April, you'd have that group. You start a new group the 1st of May, okay? Then 2 months later, when is that? July, yes, July, you could start a third group. Well, see, the May people have been in it for 3 months, I would run it overlap in 3 sets of lessons is the way that I would run mine. You overlap 2 sets of lessons. He starts 3 times a year, so if you've never square danced before, you go for 17 weeks. Then they start a new class, and now they have the brand new people that's never danced before in their first 17 weeks. They finish up with the other group in the second 17 weeks. After 34 weeks, they turn you out on the street. You're plus dancer. Go away. Isn't that more or less right? Okay. I would run a new program in 8-week segments, 24 weeks to mainstream is the way that I would choose to run one. But you can look at the handout, and there's at least a dozen different ways to do it. Some people have run 10 weeks at a time for a total of 20 weeks to mainstream. Some run 30 weeks to plus. There's a bunch of ways to do it. You can fit it to whatever works for you, and give them a place to dance.
Okay, thank you. I may be a little bit different than Nasser and Mike on this. We started doing multiple sessions years and years and years ago out of force. I had 3 mainstream clubs. I couldn't begin to do all 3 sets of lessons in September. What I found out was then, if I started some in September, started some in January, hey, these people in September are coming and they're actually selling my January class. And when I graduated my January class later in the summer months, they were actually helping promote to September. That started me really working the multiple sessions at that time. Plus, none of the other clubs were doing anything other than September lessons. There were always, all the clubs in our area was doing September. So it made it pretty difficult for those people that wanted to take square dancing any other time of the year. We started, like I said, with that intent, and really didn't know we were doing something different other than the fact we were having pretty good success with it. We were having a lot of dancers come in. We continue to do this, and now we're more structured to what Mike and Nasser have been doing, but we still do a little bit different. And that's the beautiful part of this type of program. You can make it fit yourself, your particular club, your particular area. I think Mike does his on the same night. He has one class and he follows right behind with another. I have it on different nights. I have 2 sets of lessons. Normally I have it on different nights. Mainly because in our area, people don't get home until about 6 or 7 at night anyway. If you have it, try to get them out there early, they can't get there in time. Or if you try to keep them late, we got to get home early to go to work. So I normally just do 1 set of lessons per night. I may have one on Sunday, I may have one on Tuesdays. And then as we go along, we may rotate those and go a different way. We may go Monday and Thursdays. But we keep at least 2 classes going at all times. One that's almost mostly finished and one that's just getting started. The ones that are finishing their lessons are angels for the other class. Been working very successful for us. I think the beautiful part of this, like I said, is it's not set in concrete. Make it work the way you want it to work. I would love, we have a gentleman from Washington, D.C. last year, talked to us that he had 2 other callers working with him. They had 3 sets of lessons going every night. And each caller had a different group that he worked with in different areas of the hall. And as they went along, they graduated from one area to another area to the third area where finally they finished their lessons. That'd be great if I had 2 other callers to work with, or even 3 other callers to work with, that would share my opinion and work with me like we've been having success. I think that was a beautiful success story, and they were really having fantastic turnouts. In our case, like I said, I'm working by myself primarily on this, and but we're having very good success with it. I want to stress that it's not really the complete answer to the problems of where our classes are going, and the fact that, well, we're not having a lot of people. You still have to do the legwork. You still have to get out and promote. You still got to get out and recruit. Those are important areas. However, with this additional classes going on, as Mike said, there's an enthusiasm that goes along with that. The new dancers are your most enthusiastic people. They're going to be your best salespeople. They're going to go out and work harder, especially while it's still fresh in their mind. They're still taking lessons, and I'm still enthused. If you give them a few months to cool down a little bit, by next September, they may not be quite as good a salesperson as they are right now. So, get out and use those people at this time. They're still good recruiters at this time. And like I said, they still got to do that work. They still got to promote. You still got to work with them. You and your clubs have got to work with them to help promote it. Let's see what else I got on my list here. I want to make sure I get everything done. I think one other thing you have to realize on this, there's a lot of work going on with the multi-sessions. When you take on that type of program, it's not just going and calling dances. You still have to do the legwork of the lessons itself. You've got to almost dearly love to teach in order to every night do 2 or 3 sets of lessons a week. You have to dearly love to do it, and because it's ongoing. It's ongoing. Once in a while, I do take a break, take about 3 months off, and then start again. It does interrupt the cycle for a while, but it does give me my mind just a clearer time to get refreshed and start again. So you need to do that once in a while, but it does give you a little break there that some of your enthusiasm may die down if you don't start pushing 3 or 4 months ahead of time to start, okay, we're going to start lessons, plan it ahead of time so you know exactly when those people are going to come in, when you're going to start your next set. I do not have a definite time when I start my next set. I think Mike or Nasser referred to 17 weeks difference in 1 week to another, one class to another. I actually kind of look at the calendar as I go. I don't want to start in a bad time. I don't want to start a class 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, for example. It's really kind of a bad time to start lessons. So I kind of look at my calendar and set my classes so that they start 10 to 12, 13 weeks apart. And may vary depending on the calendar and what's coming up. But it's normally within that range. As I said, it's a good tool. I've had good success with it. And I think it will work for most areas. I know Lanny down here in front, he's having good success with it. He's sharing the program with another caller and doing good. And I think if we can get other callers involved, this would be great. Take some of the burden off of it at the same time, gives the dancer a chance to actually enjoy other callers at the same time. With that, I'll get back to Mike.
Very good, Dana. The one thing that I did want to point out was that, or re-emphasize, is that there's an awful lot of different ways to run this. And when we first started this, we were going every 13 weeks, we would start a class. Now, each night we run 2 classes. The first class goes from 7 to 8:30, and I teach the basic program. In our area where we have Plus as the destination program, the second phase, or as we call it, the second phase from 8:30 to 10, we teach the mainstream and the Plus program all at one time. Dancers, if they don't feel comfortable with all the basics, they stay and they repeat the basic program. Some of them automatically repeat the basic program because they just recruited their friends in, they want to dance with their friends, so they'll repeat it automatically and go back. But we try to encourage all of our people that have gone through phase 1 to come back and angel phase 2. The other thing I like about this program that we do is it's only an hour and a half long for each session. The people don't really have a problem with paying $4 to come in and dance, and that's what they pay to dance each session. If you go out to a swing dance lesson, which is real hot right now, or you go out to a country western place, you're going to pay, they pay that. I mean, they don't bat an eye. The other thing I like about the hour and a half long is that most people physically are not able to hang in there for more than a couple hours. And if they walk out the door the first couple nights they're in there and they're just dragging, a lot of them get to the point they decide, maybe this is really not for me. Maybe this is just a little bit too, I'm tired the next day. And an hour and a half leaves them walking out the door wanting more. It's like, boy, I can't wait to come back next week. And I love that when they're walking out the door. God, I had a good time. I mean, it's like, can I do another one? And when they leave with that kind of attitude, that's the best way to have them leave. And they're up. If they're dragging out the door, then there's more of an excuse, or they can find more excuses not to come back next week. And I always thank them for coming. I hope they have a great week, and look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. We keep that enthusiasm going. Between the two sets, the angels, because I have quite a few squares of angels that come out and help us out, and sometimes they're help and sometimes they're hindrance. I have to kind of deal with that all the time, as most of you do. But then we do a tip for the angels, and I usually feature in that tip the calls that I've just taught my brand new group, no matter what they are. And I always feature the calls that I'm going to teach my second group in that angel tip. So that they can hear it. If they're going to sit around and watch, and they all don't, sometimes they're talking or doing something else, but if they are paying attention or watching, I like to tie all that together. The more times they hear those calls that I'm teaching that evening, the more that they're going to keep and retain those calls. And in the second half, from 8:30 to 10, we do the session for Phase 2. Now, we also have our dancers that go through the Phase 2 program that's mainstream and plus. It's an awful lot of material, and as most of you probably feel the same way I do, it's much too much material for dancers to learn in one season. But very often what happens is our dancers come back and they repeat Phase 2 again as a workshopper. And they have different color badges. The first phase has a particular badge, the second phase has a different badge, and the people that workshop or come back and workshop, they can actually workshop for free when they come back and repeat that program. And many of them will stay in the program as workshoppers because they may not go out and dance more than one time a week. But the other thing that the club does is their dances, their dance night, every other tip is for their dancers in Phase 2. In other words, once they hit after the first 17 weeks, they can dance with a club. They're immediately, and when they initially join the class, they're immediately sent the newsletter. We give the newsletters out to the class, or we send them to them. They're immediately invited to all the social functions of the club, all the picnics. Our club has theater parties probably about 4 times a year, and they sell tickets, and they make money off of that, and they go to the theater all together. And they go on campouts twice a year, so the new dancers are immediately invited to the campouts, and every campout has a theme. And like the last campout was Star Wars, and which is probably, and so everybody is into, dresses up in these. They just have a good time, but the new dancers are brought into the club immediately, so that it gets them into the social fold of everything that's going on. If it's a holiday party, no matter what it is, they're brought into the club right away. We want those people as part of the club. It's also helped the dances grow tremendously, the club dances, because every other tip is for those new dancers. And we thought that it might hinder some of the more experienced dancers from visiting the club, or it might keep some of our club members, would be unhappy with every other tip being for the new dancers, but it hasn't turned out that way. Our club dancers dance on the tips that it's for the club. We keep the program moving along, and the new dancers get to visit, and the club dancers that aren't dancing visit with them, and so it creates a social atmosphere that's really quite pleasant. We also have a visiting caller format in the Southern California area, so that I'm not calling all their dances. I might call 1 or 2 dances a year, but most of those dancers are done by other callers. And I always contact that other caller and let them know where those Phase 2 dancers are. They kind of advertise those dances as mainstream. Every other tip is mainstream, so the plus, mainstream, plus, mainstream. But if my Phase 2 group, which I've just taken to the basic program, only knows a couple mainstream calls, I call the caller. And I tell them, well, it's not actually mainstream. They're not all the way through, the mainstream program, but they're dancing up to here. And the caller sticks to those programs, or sticks to those number of calls, and we keep those people dancing, and the idea is to keep them dancing successfully. The other thing that we do that I think is just the slickest idea is we put up these cards. And these cards, in addition to the flyers for our next class, we make available to our new dancers. Every week we pass these things out. Make sure that they have them in their wallets and their purse. And what is this? It says on one night, on one side of this card, it says the Valley Trader Square Dance Club, invitation to learn to dance, learn to square dance. Join us for the fun. First night free, for information call, blah, blah, blah. And on the back side it says, classes start January 12th, May 11th, September 14th, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Enrollment the first 2 weeks, and we have 1999s as couples or singles welcome, $4 per person, tells them the location of the dance, who the instructor is. Try it, you love it, tell your friends. If people have these in their wallets, in their purses, when they're talking to a friend, it's like they give them a free pass. Come to our next class. They got something right there with them all times. Our new dancers have these cards. They're just the nicest tool to be able to translate an invitation to a friend after they've talked about dancing or about their class that they went to the night before. And it's a great thing. Their first night is free. The other thing that makes me kind of think about the enrollment is really only 2 weeks. Now sometimes they'll straggle in after 3 weeks, but after 3 weeks and you're only going 17 sessions for the basic program, you need to move along. And of course I'm always on the floor in between the tips talking to people or working with the dancers. Sometimes before the class we've got to square out. We're walking people through things, and my class coordinators like to do that, so they get out there and walk them through things too. We're always involved in helping the new dancers out. But at the same time, the program moves along. And if someone is having a hard time keeping up, or maybe they're not going to other new dances in the area, they may need to repeat a phase. And I don't have any problem with making sure, from the microphone, tell them if you're not feeling comfortable with all the calls, you're not just breezing through this stuff, if you really have to think hard, let's repeat the phase with us and help us out. You'll be able to help our new group coming in because you already know most of this stuff, and at the same time you'll just be able to build your skills and have more fun at that. So we try not to pressure them to go on. The other thing that's happening around the program that I'm working is we've now got about 8 to 10 clubs in our area using this system or something real similar to this system. And because of that, and because of the fact that our Phase 1 program goes through the basic program, we are now starting once a month basic dances. And I love it. It is just so nice to have these people come out, and we have other clubs in the area that are doing the traditional program of September to June. But these people come out, and they're dancing the basics. We're just using the basic program only, even though some of them know a little bit more calls. We're not trying to draw lines between different guys and their different teaching paces. We're just doing the basic program. So all they have to do to come to this dance is just know the basics. And we make it fun. There's no round dancing between, but if the caller wants to put on a line dance or wants to do a mixer or wants to do a contra or wants to do something else, put it on and go. We've had 3 of these dances so far. The first one was 20 squares, the second one was 25, and the third one was 27. The last one we could just barely, and it's a 25 square hall. We can just barely get everybody in there the last time around. We're having a great time. There's a lot of enthusiasm. We have quite a few of our angel people, our club people coming out and dancing with these new dancers. Many of them are the friends that they've recruited into dancing, and they can actually go to a fun night or go to a dance with them. And this is a system that just started, or a set of dances that just started this year. It is sponsored by a different club every night. It's in the same location. There's about 5 clubs right now that are working together to sponsor these dances, and each night is a different club. But we're excited because it's for the first time in 25 years in our area that is predominantly a plus area, we are creating a program where if dancers are somewhat stopped between that first phase and going on to the next phase, or as many of you know, a lot of people drop out during mainstream and even more in plus because it just becomes boggling to them, or they don't have the time to donate or to dedicate to it, they could at least have a once-a-month dance to go to. And we're excited about having this program. Now, Dana just pointed out one thing, that his program, they stop in the summertime. And I'm sure some of you are in situations where you can't have a hall in the summertime, or the weather is such that you can't do it in the summertime. We're fortunate we dance in a church multi-purpose room that has air conditioning, so we dance all year round. And I love the fact that momentum keeps us going. It is a real help for us. It's a disadvantage for me in that there's really no downtime during the year. And I have to, get another caller to take over if I'm on vacation or whatever. But the fact is, it keeps things going, and it keeps the momentum going. If you're considering starting a program like this, or you're just starting a program like this, don't become, disillusioned when you first start. Give this program 3 to 4 starts to get it going, because it's that momentum and that tweaking that you'll do to it as you go along that you'll make it work for your area. And it just takes a little bit of time to get it tweaked so that it works for you. But once you do, and once you get the momentum of having your brand new dancers recruit their friends and dance with their friends immediately, it is one of the best tools for getting new people in our activity that I know of. Any questions as we go along? Let me just pass this out.
Keith Ferguson, Saratoga, California. We're going to try it this year for the first time. In our area, most classes go from September through May. My club is unusual in that it and a few other clubs have always had a January class, January through September. And last fall, I convinced our club to try, we're doing a January through September, to start a new class in May on the same evening, running till whenever it has to run. I do have another caller that's going to be doing that because it's the same evening. It'll be earlier in the evening, and I have trouble getting there early. But I have to admit, I sold it to the club, and now I'm getting very nervous about this. And the reason I'm nervous, you're making me feel a little better, but maybe there's some more you can say, perhaps, any of you, but I think maybe mine's going to be more similar to what you're doing because we're just going to run 2 a year. We won't start a third phase in September because everybody else in our area does the September one. And the reason I'm nervous is that I have never done a class even on the same night as a club night. It's always been a separate class night, running from 8 to 10, and really running from 7:30 to 10 because I invite them to come half an hour earlier if they want a little more practice on things they're having problems with, and most people do. So I really have had 2.5 hours. Now I will have an hour and a half for each phase. One phase will run from 7 to 8:30. The current people that have been coming at 8 or even at 7:30, well, they'll start. Their part will be 8:30 to 10, although I'm strongly encouraging them to come early with their friends for review. And I'm just looking at how can I teach the program and move it along at a reasonable pace. I don't necessarily have to finish in September, but in an hour and a half, we do take them all the way to plus in our area. We have no choice, really. And right now, with the time I have, by the time I do a review of what they've learned the week before, give them a little time just to dance and relax and teach new material. I've used the full time I have now, and I'm just concerned about how I program an hour and a half time slot to review what they've had, teach the new material without just feeling like every word out of my mouth is teaching something. Are you able to do it in a way that can still make it fun for them? I'm sure you can, but I'd like to hear how.
Well, I'll tell you, in an hour and a half time, this is just the way I do it. We start out the very first tip, and we're just dancing. We're just getting their blood moving and getting their blood stirred up a little bit. And I'm reviewing the stuff that I did last week. Not necessarily that I taught last week, but that I've danced before. So just get them moving. After the first tip, we have some food up there, and everybody, so we make it kind of like a party, and they're eating food and talking a little bit, and I immediately get a demo square on the floor. And I just said, let me show you some of the calls that we're going to teach tonight. And it's just before we square up, because we only take about a 5 minutes break or so. And immediately, I put a square on the floor, and we just start showing. I show the moves that we danced last week. Here's the moves that we danced last week, guys. And if anybody's missed, they can kind of keep an eye on. And of course, those people can come early too. But we show them the moves that we're gonna dance that night, and that we also taught the week before. And I say the name of the movement as many times as I can as I walk them through the movement. I want them to just hear that name in their ear. Then the very next tip, I teach them a call. And maybe if there's related calls, I'll teach them 2 calls during that tip, and we'll just dance along. And the third tip, I generally review a little bit, kind of back off a little bit, have fun with them a little bit. And the very last tip, I teach them something. The very last tip. I read an interesting article a couple of years ago by Dr. Jack Murtha, and he was talking about retention and saying that early in the evening, people pick up things, they're sharp, they're ready to go, and at the very end of the evening, you leave them with a very last thing to remember. They seem to remember that, and so just using that principle, I teach the second. There's about 4 tips in that hour and a half, and I teach the second tip and the 4th tip. Sometimes I'll get in the 3rd tip, but we usually relax, and I call singers every tip, and I relax them in the singers, and we maybe include the calls that we taught. It's not as much dance time or downtime, but if they're overloaded from either the review of the week before or the calls, maybe the 1 or 2 calls I've taught here in the second tip, then I don't teach in the 4th tip. We just lay back and play. So I try to do 3 calls a night, sometimes more, sometimes less. And 34 weeks total. Even with only an hour and a half? Even with over an hour and a half, yeah. And I never have to teach really more than 4 a night. But it's mostly 3. Sometimes I just do 2, and And I've done some of that where I haven't taught a thing. We just have fun. I know that these guys are just pressed as far as they can go. Just relax, right?
There has been times where I've actually taught classes on the same night as club night, and what I've normally done is when they get to a point where they're actually doing basics, we do mainstream in our area. When they get to doing basics, I may include the class into about half an hour with the club dance. Bring them over that first half an hour. The club doesn't mind at all. We have fun with basics just as well as mainstream, and it works well too. That blends them into the club, and we just each night we kind of extend it just a little bit longer. Before long, they're here in the club without ever even graduating at that point even.
Yes. Say your name into the microphone so we can get that on the tape, okay?
First, I want to deal with his question for just a moment longer. I've been doing multi-cycle lessons for 3 years now, and I actually don't run my sessions as equal hour and a half. I give an hour and 45 minutes for the first group and an hour and 15 for the second. Because what I have found is that the second group isn't getting an hour and 15-minute lesson, they're getting a 3-hour lesson. Because they're hitting the ground running. They've already warmed up. I don't have to get them into the square dance mode. They're already dancing. And the second thing is I'm enforcing angeling. Okay, so I've found the key is I give the 15 minutes extra to the first group and 15 minutes less to the second group, but the second group still gets that time anyway. The one thing I did hear you mention that I've observed consistently is we used to have people when we got into mainstream, and they get about halfway through mainstream, and they drop out. And what happens is they don't drop out anymore. They just stop coming to phase 2. They continue to come to phase 1. And then the next time, they make it through phase 2. But before, they would have walked out the door, and they won't come back the next September. So we're saving a whole group of dancers for the future, and that's the point I wanted to make.
Good point, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about these basic dances is you can hang on. You give them a place to dance other than the class, but you're absolutely right. It does keep them. You're not losing them. Yes, John.
I'm John Marshall, Centerville, Virginia. Mike, I had several questions on the way your program's working. For one thing, what your club program, what program, or using the old term level, is the club itself that you're bringing these people in? It is plus, but you indicated that when you bring your new people in, every other tip is geared to them. Now you're talking about the people who have finished all the way through the second phase, is that correct? Through phase 1. So what happens is your club has agreed that every other tip will be a mainstream tip for all intent and purposes. And is that a forever thing? That's one of my questions. All right. Another question that I had was, you're promoting it as classes, and we've been doing some talking recently about impacting people and fear words and reactions. Has anybody tried promoting it as a dance party night or something like that initially to bring them in the door, rather than, have you seen a difference in that? Was one of the additional questions that I had. And I had one other question I had written down here, see if I can find it. Well, that's fine.
The question about the forever, the club just finds that this works really well for them, and that they still have full houses and full crowds doing alternating tips. They haven't found that to be a problem. Initially, they thought it might. This club also has one other night of the month they danced A1. And so, but surprisingly, the A1 dancers and plus dancers come to the dance, and it doesn't keep them away. They really enjoy the sociability of it, and they enjoy dancing with the new dancers. This club has made a concerted effort to focus on their new dancers. What's actually happened is they were down to about 75 members. They used to be a very large club. They went down to about 75 members, and they said, we have to do something. And what they did was they said, we're going to put all our energy into our new dancers. And what happened was that immediately they started building. Their club started growing, and now we're over 300 members, and they're just excited as can be. And so there's a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement with their new dancers. It does. It builds excitement and enthusiasm. So right now, I guess I could say yes. It's probably a forever thing, or at least how long is forever. The other thing about new dancer parties, I never refer to the classes as classes per se. I try really hard, and I find myself falling back into that. But the first night, I say, welcome to our Tuesday night new dancer dances, and I call them new dancer dances, and we just and we call our basic dance just a fun night. Come to the fun night, and so we try not to say classes. I try not to use the word beginners. I try not to use the word level. We say phase 1, phase 2. They're new dancers because they're dancing the first night. So it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but I'm working at it. So
I guess my last question would be, in terms of demographics, are you seeing a particular age group responsiveness to this, one way or the other?
Yes, we're seeing the baby boomers, the bottom of the baby boom generation. We're seeing late 30s, early 40s, up to 55. And that's primarily the age of our newer dancers coming in right now. These are people that their kids are getting old enough where don't need all that attention, and I think that's the group that we need to target, and we're excited about it. It's working out really well. So, there's another question, John.
Yeah, John Kephart from San Antonio. One of the ideas that are in the planning stages for us that I've presented to our Callers Association, we're getting ready to present it to the Dancers Association, is in the multi-level type of education is not necessarily the club itself, but that we have sufficient a number of clubs in our area. We could actually start lessons. Each club could start their lessons a different month. One could start in September, another one October, December, all through the 12-month year period. And then the following year, whatever club started in September rotates to October, and it would rotate continually, and it would be a mechanism for people that come in to say, I want to start lessons. Well, we're starting in 3 weeks at this club, or I can't make it then. Okay, well, 3 weeks later, there's another class going to be starting. So I'm presenting that idea, and we're hoping that it'll get some very positive feedback, because we don't have a mechanism, I think, throughout the country to allow people to come into the activity every month of the year. And I'm hoping that's going to fly with them.
John, the St. Louis area is doing something similar to that. Decided a couple of years ago that their whole dance population, had shrunk significantly and that they needed to do something. So they, in a combination of yard signs with, I believe, this clubs alternating the month that and they're early on, so I haven't heard any information about it, but you might look for somebody from St. Louis and see if you can't get that information.
Bob Rollins, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I noticed this endorsement here on Legacy from Stan and Kathy Burdick, and I think that packet's a good one for recruitment. But I wonder if anybody is, with such a big group of 300, did anybody do any kind of a data study on that, or put it in a bank so you know that a certain percentage of these folks are retired, or some work for the oil company or something? I'm curious to know where these folks are, because so many of the people that we've in the past focused on, mom and dad both work to make both ends meet, and it's really hard to get them out on the dance floor. So.
You're right. To my knowledge, we haven't done any kind of statistics and any kind of data gathering. Sure, it would be, and maybe that's something we need to do on a professional level, with our entire activity. Maybe we can gather some data on that. And as part of this marketing effort that you heard Jim Hensley talk about at our opening session, that's kind of the thing we're looking at to initially start. Let's get some data on how we'd go about really doing this with some professional information. You betcha. Also, Doug Davis and I had a conversation. Doug's from the Reno area, and we were talking about how do you get your club to change, to do this type of thing. And I tried for a long time to go around the clubs in Southern California, Northern California. I was up in Utah doing a caller seminar, and I was talking up there about this program and how do you get these people to change. And I find that it's difficult for callers to sell it to a club. It's sometimes the clubs look at you like, well, what do you got up your sleeve, and what do you, there's a little bit of suspicion on what our motivation is, I guess, with some people and some club officers. I have been fortunate enough to have a couple spokespeople from our club to go out themselves, and immediately when people start talking to me, I refer to these two fellows that are in the club, and they go out and do a presentation, either both of them or one of them. It has been incredibly more successful. They have been a lot more successful in selling this program than I have, just because they really believe in it and they're talking from the bottom of their heart. They got no axe to grind, and they're a dancer talking to another dancer, and it has really, really made a big difference. So that's a help. If you can get just one club that's doing it successfully, that club can sell it to the other clubs. Will?
My name is Will Leeds from Southern California, San Diego area. I had talked with Mike last year about this same situation, and this past year was our first trial at this. And it kind of happened in a strange way that another caller and myself both are working teaching one class, Buddy Weaver. We teach class on Monday nights, and we have a multi-level class, the same situation. One night I'm there teaching the basic class. Buddy is teaching our advanced group, which also meets on Monday night. Excuse me. And the next week we flip-flop. I go back and I teach the advanced group, he teaches the basic group, and we work back and forth. We communicate with each other very well, and we make sure that we do that on a weekly basis. We talk about this a couple times a week. We make notes and make sure the other guy's working at it. The club that we're teaching for initially was very, very apprehensive about doing this, and Buddy and I, neither one had done it ourselves before. So anyway, they decided we'll go ahead and give it a try. So we started out the first 17 weeks, and we do the 17-week cycle just as Mike does, and we call it Phase 1 and Phase 2 also. The very first phase of this thing, for the first hour and a half, we taught the brand new people, and the second half of it, we had the club there, and we did a plus workshop for them, basically just to enhance their dancing. So finally, when we finished the first phase of this and we put them into Phase 2, we picked up the new class, and all of a sudden it jumped. We went from about 5 squares up to 7. Now we're up to 8 squares on the first half, and about 5 squares on the second half. And we noticed that the second half people are coming there, getting their reinforcement, they're warmed up, they're getting ready to go. By the time their second half starts, they're ready to go, and it's working. And the club themselves are so ecstatic over this. They were so apprehensive to start with, but now they are just livid, because something is really working for them, and it's working for us. I have another phase, 2-phase class I teach on Sunday nights, which is about the same type of program, except I'm the only guy that's working that. I do that in two-hour sessions, which makes a long night for me, but that's fine. I don't mind. We run from 5 until 7 and 7 until 9 in the same kind of a situation. We have another caller in our area that's doing the same thing. He has also started multi-level, and he's using the Phase 1 and Phase 2 just as we are here. Now, this is new for all of us there. No one has tried this before. But you know something? It's working. It's really working. I had one lady that came to class. She was a previous dancer, and she had lost her last husband, and she was bringing a new boyfriend through class. And about halfway through the first phase, he had to have surgery, so they had to drop out. And I really missed them, and I didn't know what happened. But then they came back again at the restart of the second time around with him, and she says, you know, this is the greatest thing that ever happened, because now we're right back into it again. We didn't have to wait for another year, which she was a previous dancer. She knows what it was all about. So to me, to look at this situation, and it is a fast-moving hour and a half. We dance the fool out of them, I'll tell you. We don't let them rest too much. But they love it, and we love it. And you know something? It works. It really, really works.
Yes, Lanny and then Dr. Randy.
Lanny Weekland, Omaha, Nebraska. I started this with another caller in 1986 after the Kansas City Convention. And one thing you need to remember, don't limit this to just your club. If you have clubs in your area like we do that are small, we encourage every club to have their own lessons. But if you have 2 couples and your club can't afford lessons, bring those 2 couples to us. We'll teach them. You take them back with you. You come square angel them. It's worked very well for us in our area. We start a new class every 3 months. And we started them on a Thursday night. We looked at the calendar. The only holiday we ever hit is Thanksgiving. We started the second Thursday in October, and we miss Christmas, we miss New Year's, we miss all the holidays, and we go year round. We've had a class every 3 months since 1996. Some of them aren't large, but they pay the hall rent. The clubs that we have 5 clubs that we call for together in the area, so we get the support of our mainstream and plus clubs. Where our basic level that we're ending our dancers at is mainstream, and we advise the dancers not to go on to plus for at least a year in our area, which works well. But if you have another caller that you can teach with, it makes it so much easier, because you don't have all the work for yourself. Those 3-hour nights get awfully long.
In the fall, you'll have retread dancers approach you and say, when your class gets far enough along, let us know and we'll come back. But I'm a firm believer, whether you're talking beginners or retreads, that you need to strike when the iron is hot. And now when they come to us in September and say, let us know, we say, right now, because we have a group that's just going into phase 2 and you're perfect to fit into it. We as an activity have had a tendency to be a limited access activity with 1 entry point per year and 365 exits.
Good point. Yes, yes. First of all, just a show of hands, how many, again, are using this program here? Are using some kind of a program? How many are thinking about using a program like this? Good, good.
I'm Keith Stevens from State College, Pennsylvania. Our area is very reluctant to change. Obviously, we don't use this system. And I would be interested in hearing the selling points you were able to use for the existing clubs on bringing these new dancers in at a level that is not, quote, up to their par.
You want to talk about that, Dana?
I'll talk a little bit about it, but I really just, like I said, when I started it, it was forced. I had pretty much forced into it because I couldn't do 3 nights a week of lessons. I was doing with 3 clubs. I had to kind of break it down, and clubs were pretty receptive of that. But I think really the big selling point you would have is simply that when you look at most activities, you can go learn to play the golf anytime you want to. You can go country line dance anytime you want to learn. And square dancing, most areas limit that to September only. There's so many people out there wanting to square dance, but can't start in September. Can't start till October, November, December, wherever. If you offer square dancing other times a year, you're going to pick up some numbers. I think the proof is in the areas that are doing this. You can go back to your club and say, we've been to CALLERLAB, we've talked to these callers that are doing this, and it's working. We are having turnouts. Am I completely satisfied? No. I won't be satisfied until I have a hall full and all the other clubs in the area are doing the same thing, because it's working. It's working. But it's a good tool. In our area, we have 40 clubs in our area, the district. We have a tenderfoot dance every year where they invite all the new dancers. The last 3 years, over 25% of those new dancers coming into that tenderfoot are coming from my classes. In a way, I'm proud of that, but in another way, it's scary. Why aren't the other clubs doing the same thing? Why aren't they bringing new dancers in? Why aren't they recruiting and doing promotion and multiple sessions so they can bring new dancers in? I'm not completely satisfied with our effort yet, but when I go to that, it makes me wonder why the other clubs don't see that also. Why aren't they utilizing this method?
In terms of how to convince an existing club to go with a new plan where you say change is slow, but you're absolutely right. Some of that is addressing the 10-page handout, that if there weren't enough copies, the CALLERLAB office has some. They need to be convinced that all we're doing is finding a way to start the class more than once a year. We're looking at the big weak spot that you can only start in square dancing once a year and trying to find a way around that. To start if you want to be just like Mike and start a new club start a new plan where you don't have one. It takes a little bit of planning to do, but it's not that hard to do. You would start with like an empty calendar for the year 2000 and say, well, okay, these are the times I want to start. I want to start on second Thursday or whatever of every 4 months, for example. Or let's say, to be exactly like Mike, he starts on the second Tuesday of month 1, 5, and 9. So you'd mark those dates on your calendar. Okay, January 11th, May 9th, September 12th of 2000. These are the start date of the cycle. And then if that's the start date, then you can do a little more planning. Well, when do I have to have the the flyers out, or the ads in place if you're going to advertise. Well, that has to be 3 weeks before. Well, if I'm going to do that when or the 3 times, I have to get it to the printers or whatever. So you have all of that planned, and then you work back to the current time. Like if you're going to start on January 11th of 2000, you start on September 14th of 1999. You start on May 11th of 1999. That's kind of doable. No, you could do it. You could start on May 11th, and then have a program just like mine. Another thing you could do for the very first time, you say, okay, how do you do it on the very first session? If your plan is to have 2 sessions, your phase 1 and phase 2 people, what do you do on the first time? You don't have 2 groups to work from. You can do like, was it Will that did it, had phase 1, people that's never danced before, and then for the second half, for the phase 2, they did a plus workshop instead. Or you could, instead of a 4-month class on the first time through, you could do just a 2-month class. You could start in the middle of July and have just phase 1 that gets the whole period of time from 7 to 9:30. They do that for 2 months. They'll learn as much in double the time as anyone else would learn in 4 months, going an hour and a half. Whereas they go like 2.5 hours for 2 months, and then September 14th you're off and running. So you start with your calendar and figure out how to set the session up. In figuring out how to set up each one night of lessons, you take some of the ideas from here. I like what Mr. Page said of not dividing it right in half. Notice he gave an hour and 45 minutes to the first session. So you'd say, okay, I'm going to set up my night. It'll be from 7:30 to 10 p.m. So that'd be 2.5 hours. So using his, I would like get a computer or something and figure out, I would do a ratio. That's what I would do. And I figured out where the first group gets an hour and 23 minutes, and the second group gets an hour and 7 minutes. And then that would, maybe I wouldn't.
Very good. I think the important thing is there's a lot of different ways to do it. As far as selling this thing, if your clubs are going downhill and you're not getting new people, you can simply say, if we keep doing the same thing we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we've got now. You're not going to get new dancers unless we change our approach to opening up the door and letting them in, unless we change our focus. I hear that attitude. Some people say they don't want to dance with new dancers. They're rough, or they don't know what they're doing, or what. If you don't dance with new dancers, this activity is just going to die out. We need to focus our attention. And actually what we're finding is the dancers that may have had kind of an inclination before are finding there's a renewed enthusiasm in them in dancing with these new dancers. These people are having a great time. They're so enthusiastic. They're a lot younger. We're getting younger people in, and those younger people bring their friends. And once they start this, once you get one successful program going, do you have halfway dances in your area? No new dancer dances? Very rural.
With very rural, we have one club in the area. Well, there is one club at the plus level. I do advanced and challenge, but at the introduction to dancing, there's only one club. If you want to dance to another club, you have to drive 55 miles to another club.
Looks like I've called in some areas like that, and you can just, as I'm sure most of you have, you walk in and you say, square dancing will die in this area. If there's not something that starts to generate it, to make it go, it will die, because there's nothing to bring new dancers in, and you either start something different or you just look for it to be gone in a couple of years,
Hank Lutzer from Cogan Station, Pennsylvania. I'm in the same association Keith is. Our club association has 2 class dances a year for all the classes to come, and they call the dance to where the lowest class is. All right? But what I initially wanted to mic for, I wanted to find out from each of you, what was your initial recruitment tools that you used to get started with your first classes?
I'll let you guys talk about that. Basically, a lot of the same stuff for us was a lot of the same stuff out of the Legacy handout. I really believe in that handout, that promo pack. Dana?
Probably no different, like you say, than what most people use in their normal promotion with square dancing, marketing with square dancing. We also use a little card like this. We also use a postcard. We make a little postcard up, which is great to hand out,
or put a label on it and mail it. Real quick. Mailing, it's also real quick to hand out. And it's something we can put on the refrigerator and see real easily. We always make a very bright color, maybe a hot pink or something like that, so that it stands out well for them. They see it really easily. We use the posters, we use the flyers, anything we can, but that's the way we market any lessons, whether it be the multi-session or anything. And that's the way we've done it for years. Word of mouth is, but we relied on people contacting people, and that works the best. And that's the reason the multi-session works the best, is because you're actually taking the person in class right now, and he's out selling for you real quick. He's selling right away. That's what really the primary purpose of the multi-lesson session is, to get those people out selling for you, as well as offer square dancing enough time that they actually have place to go dance at any time they want to start.
I think all of us will say that probably the vast majority of the people that dance with us came from word of mouth recruiting, and so this is really valuable. I'll be starting a new session soon in California, where I recently moved. I plan to use these little coupon books, these little mailers that you get in the mail. I told them a sad story. It's a sad story, and they just gave me an incredible deal. Actually, on an introductory, they're looking for new business just like we are, and say, well, what would you do if I would try that? I've used those in the past, and has worked well. So that's what I'm planning to do for the advertising. The deal where he does the card sounds like a good idea. From the RPM committee has published in the past lots of different things that work. It'd be great to hear from this room what people use that work to bring them in.
Internet may be a possibility too. I think if you're just starting from scratch and your nucleus of recruiting people is so slow, if you can get one of the clubs or your association to have a fun night, sponsor a barbecue fundraiser for some whatever thing that's going on in your area that's popular. Sometimes even a Kiwanis group or a service group has a project going, and you can raise funds for that and invite everybody to a charitable thing. Have a barbecue, have a square dance, a one-night party. Come out in regular clothes and potluck. Have the dancers bring potlucks, those kind of things, and sign those people up, or at least get their names and addresses and use that as a tool. You need a mailing list. Demos work. We talked about demos and stuff before. I think there's the age of stuff. We'll then have them all bring their kids and grandkids. So this is something you got to bring your kids and grandkids to. Have a family night where they got to bring their family.
I've had the pleasure, or however you want to look at it, of calling for a square dance club 1,200 miles out on the Aleutian chain. So I think that's pretty rural. And what we did was we had a barn dance. And believe it or not, the equivalent, it was on a military base, but the equivalent to the Chamber of Commerce sponsored it. And we used our calling skills and went in and had a barn dance. And we recruited 10 squares, and the building was that size, so let's dance that, and that looks okay. So if you're in a rural area, take your skills to the Chamber of Commerce and sell them. Or take it to the church. Hopefully you've got a church that permits dancing and you're in good shape. But and then do that. My problem is finding a place to dance. They've been closed. The schools were closed out to square dancing, and that hurt us. So if you got some ideas on where to go to get a place to dance, I'll be happy.
We were talking about park and rec programs. We've been out of the park and recs for a long time, but if you have an abbreviated program or something, look at the park and recreational program. The people that are now running these park and recs are looking for numbers. They're looking for people to come in that'll run these programs for them. So I think that's another avenue to get back to.
Will Leach from California again. You think about it, back before we started dancing, the circle of friends that we had that we socialized with, once we started into square dancing, we got as many of those as we could into square dancing. But once you're involved in square dancing, your circle of friends become square dancers. So you really don't have the recruiting tool that the new people coming into square dancing has. The new people are coming into square dancing, especially you look back to when we first started, how enthusiastic we were about something we had just got a hold of. we were so excited about it that we got our friends in at that time. And it's the same thing is going to occur right now. The new people you bring into square dancing right now, their circle of friends that are outside of the square dancing will be their next square dancers. And it's just a snowballing type thing. But if you can only give them a class once a year, then during that period of 1 year time, probably the people that are involved in square dancing will become their circle of friends, and the outsiders that they used to be with are starting to get distant from them. So you have to have this thing starting. It has to rejuvenate itself ever so often. And I really think that's the only thing that we're going to be able to do. We have to have something to market to these people. We have to have a product. If you can't sell it to them, why offer it to them? And once a year is not really enough time to offer the people that product.
Meg Ferguson from Saratoga, California. My husband Keith is a caller, and I'm very enthused about the multi-phase teaching, which we're going to start in May. But I have a question. Have you heard of any places where it's been tried and it has not been successful? And can you tell us some things to avoid doing, so that it will be successful?
Something you want? The only thing I can find that has been, we've had people try it once. They tried it the first phase. Well, it's like trying a class once, so you don't, if it doesn't go, try again. You don't even have to wait the whole phase. Try again. Start it again. And keep it going. That's the key. Once you get this, Will was pointing out, once you get the nucleus of new dancers that are enthusiastically going out and recruiting their friends, then you've got the momentum in the program. And that's the thing, is keep the momentum going. And I think that's probably something Dana's got to work as far as momentum.
I think just listen to people in this room. There's no one that's saying it's not working for them. The guys here are trying it are all very enthusiastic about it. It's something really fantastic to work with. I've been working with it for years and years and years. These guys are just getting started with it in the last 4 or 5 years and really seeing the success, the enthusiasm going with it, and they have that enthusiasm too. I don't see there's no way that can't work. It's got to work. Is there anything I can tell you not to do? No, I think the biggest thing would be to burn yourself out. You don't want to burn yourself out. And that's really where, like I said, this summer I'm taking 3 months off. That's the first time I've taken probably in 3 years. But at this point in time, I want to have a little break myself. And then I will start up. Like Mike said, I hate to see you breaking a chain of enthusiasm, but I think at this point I need that to get my enthusiasm back up to keep lessons going. It's a lot of work. As we said before, it's a lot of work that goes with this. So you got to be ready for it. One more comment I want to make. Did that help? Did you guys have anything you want to add? One other comment I want to add to the gentleman back here that said, well, how do you talk the club into it? I would probably, rather than trying to make it correspond with a club night, have a separate night. Like your club dances on Saturday night, have lessons on Tuesday night, start at 7 o'clock, end at 8:30 with the first group, 8:30 to 10 with the second group. Or something of that nature. It doesn't have to be Tuesday, it could be Sundays or whatever. I do some Sunday afternoon stuff with lessons. It works real good.
There's another way. This session has been given at 2 previous CALLERLAB conventions too, so absolutely, pick up a tape like this.
Lanny Weekland, Omaha, Nebraska. What is the biggest thing you hear from your clubs when you say you want to have lessons and they have 3-4 couples? We can't afford it. It's too expensive. We're going to lose money. Our treasury won't hold it. It's going to fold. If you can get the support from your club, and you are the caller, you take all the financial responsibility away from the club. That's what we have done in our area. Another caller, Mike Hogan, and myself, offer the lessons. Our club support us by angels and bringing in the support. But we rent the hall. If there's any profit, we make it. If there's any loss, we absorb it, which we have. If we were in this profession for money, none of us would probably be in it. So we just need to put dancers on the floor.
Absolutely right. And I find with the multi-cycle programming, once you get it going, your club's going to make money on these classes. I know we have, and the club has just boomed because of it. I mean, you're getting 2 classes on the same night instead of 1. It's more paying the rent.
And John Marshall, Centerville, Virginia. Mike started to touch on a recruitment idea or a method, and I've long believed that we have a hard time explaining to non-square dancers what square dancing is. Even your closest friend, if you're a dancer and you're an avid dancer and you go out and you try to tell them what it is, you can't really do it. It's something that has to be experienced. And I've often believed that what we need to do in terms of trapping new people, if you will, or like our theme, hook 'em, one of the ways to do that is you set almost, I hate to say it this way, it's almost like a trap for them through a medium that they recognize. Every area has special things. You know, some areas have chili cook-offs, other areas have barbecues, the bull roasts, other areas have clam bakes. You know, whatever's unique to your area, that, you know, the ham and oyster dinner thing, whatever it happens to be, let your club sponsor that. And that's what the event is. And have the people pay for it as they probably appropriately would pay for that type of an event any place else they went. Going to be a great time, we're going to have a good time, and run the bull roast, the barbecue, whatever it is. Run it, let the club support it. Don't worry about costuming and all that. They're there for that event. Oh, and by the way, while you're here, come on guys, we're all going to get up and try this. And you just slip in a little square dance, a little one-nighter stuff, not for 2 hours, nothing like that, just to give them the feel and the flavor. They came for their bull roast. They also got to square dance, and they got to do this, and they got to do that. And, you know, son of a gun, I'm darned if there weren't things available about additional square dance stuff there to be picked up. But this is setting the hook through a medium that they can readily identify with, that they associate with being fun. This is just another kind of fun that's been added to it, and then take off from there. I think it's a psychology thing that would work well for us. And maybe the club could sponsor that.
So, Randy?
Something that we tried for the first time last year in my area for one of our cycle start-offs, and it basically fed off of what John was talking about, was we went to the American Red Cross and ran a benefit dance as a fun night and had them sell the tickets at $5 a person. Of course, it was tax deductible because they didn't pay us anything for it. It was all gravy for them, but they have another set of people that they can go to. And when people pay $5 a person to come to a dance like that, they come, as opposed to just taking it as a donation.
Absolutely right. If it has some value, and it's a donation type thing. It's, hey, I'm donating to the Red Cross, and at the same time they're getting something for it. And
the question up front was, has this ever not worked? And the thing that you want to avoid, some of the trappings are, you look at advertisement, and it's nice to get a group of square dance clubs, like an organization of clubs, to kick up the money for the advertisement up front. Avoid that. Because what happens is, you get your advertisement, you get the folks in the door. Now, who gets the dancers? And that caller, who teaches the class? That caller that teaches the class, is he going to get all the dancers? And then you get infighting. So you want to really be careful of that. God created square dancing for all of us. So,
point well taken. Very well said. Steve?
Hi, Steve Jacques, Baltimore, Maryland. One thing I did for classes one year in the summertime is I took the classes to the local mall, and it worked really good because I was good friends with the mall manager and stuff, and we conducted our classes in the mall all summer. So when it came back to the fall season, we had those people coming to the schools, and one reason why we didn't stay at the mall was because we didn't want to lose the school, but we go back every now and then to the mall in the summer and conduct classes through the summer.
Great idea. Yes.
First of all, I must say that I'm here as a guest of the Caller Lab representing the 49th National Square Dance Convention. I'm not a caller, but as program chairman for the 49th, it comes into the category of dancers coming to our convention. But being from Bethany Beach, Delaware on the Eastern Shore, one of the things that we found in the last 2 years that was a serious problem was when the new dancers came into as the new dancers, as they progressed on, it seemed that somewhere along the line the dancers felt that they would go so far and they were just sort of isolated, the fact that they would not have the opportunity of halfway dances or other availability of dancing at say, the plus level dancing, because they were only just so as far. So the past 2 years, our clubs over there have got together with the callers, because we have guest callers all the time. So they've asked the guest callers to make it an alternate evening with plus and the class level, so that the caller knows how far those students have progressed on, so that he could call a dance and the people then they could join in with the dances. So therefore, we have been able to retain anywhere between 18 and 20 students that are actually coming to plus dances in the area. So this is something you can keep in mind in regards to including them, so that they feel wanted and they feel that they're welcomed all the time, regardless they only may be gone so many weeks. So this is important that we found. So it's worked.
Great, that's the thing. Include these people. Hey, we're running out of time, gang. We're just about set for. I think we're close, aren't we? And it's lunchtime. Will, you want to make a final comment here?
Yeah, one real quick comment. In our two classes, the first class is invited to stay around and watch the second half dance, and the club brings refreshments every week. I don't know where they come from, but they stick around. They have refreshments. They eat cookies and drink coffee and watch them dance for at least 15 or 20 minutes almost every week.
It's nice time for social bonding and stuff. So make sure you got food at your classes. If it's St. Patrick's Day, put some decorations up. Make it green. Come in green. Make it fun. That's the thing, is make this thing fun and include those dancers, and you're going to have some success in what you do. How about a nice hand for our panelists, Nasser Shukayr, Dana Schirmer. Thank you very much. I'm Mike Seastrom, and we'd like to thank you for coming out. Have a great rest of the convention. Lunchtime now, okay? Take care.